This is Windshield Hoops. What's going on, everybody? This is James Adams alongside Zach Rudine, and we're kind of doing our episode a little differently today. We're recording this right after the Warriors and Kings series, and we're just going to give a reaction to basically every series in the first round because with this Warriors and Kings series wrapped up, it's over. Moving on to the second round. So we're kind of going a little spontaneous. We don't know exactly what we're talking about today. We're just going to kind of bounce around and talk about our takeaways from the series and what's coming next for teams that won and, you know, some storylines to look at for some teams that got eliminated. So, hey, Zach, what's going on?
I'm doing great. We haven't recorded in a little bit, but, obviously we had a lot of complications in the way. I got sick like twice in the same week too. So, we're finally back though. That first round of the playoffs was really weird. I don't know if you had that same feeling too. There's a lot of buzz around like how it was officiated and, talks with like technicals and what should be, flagrant two and stuff like that. A lot of weird stuff. But hey, I think NBA basketball in the playoffs is super entertaining when you got two big market teams like the Lakers and the Knicks potentially making deep runs. Even though I don't generally like those franchises a ton, I definitely think it adds energy to this playoffs.
Yeah, the officiating is what it is in the NBA. I don't think anybody likes it at this point, and, to piggyback off what you said, you were sick. It's kind of that time of the year, Minnesota, right?
Yeah.
I was doing a master class for acting, and that literally consumed all of my time in addition to school. So it was just, we needed a couple weeks, and we appreciate everybody for being patient with us. We had one of our old episodes that we recorded 2 weeks ago posted like 4 days ago. So
Yeah.
we were definitely a little behind for a little bit, but I think we're on a good track now in the thick of the playoffs. And with that being the case, let's go get started. We're going to start out with the West teams, and then we'll conclude the episode with some of the Eastern Conference series. So let's get started right away. Stay right at home. Denver versus Minnesota takeaway. So the series ended in 5 games. The first game was not competitive at all, and the rest were pretty competitive, but Denver won most of them down the stretch. So, Zach, I want to hear your biggest takeaways for whatever angle you want to take it. Just floor's yours.
Well, my first big takeaway for the Nuggets is, Jamal Murray just knows how to elevate his play completely when it comes to the playoffs. He just seems like a different player. And we already saw it, game 1 against Phoenix and how he looked there. But he was really nice in the series. Obviously, the Timberwolves without like McDaniels, their best defender who would have guarded him, not having Jaden hurt a lot in that series. And it could have, the Timberwolves could have definitely done better with him, and they would have. But Jamal Murray was phenomenal. For the Timberwolves, Anthony Edwards was like a top 5 player in the first round, maybe even top 3. He was unreal. It's not even, he wasn't even just putting up 31 points per game. He was playing some of the best defense in the playoffs. He was the number 1 shot blocking guard in the playoffs in that first round series. He was awesome. His efficiency was nice. I think he's such a stud. He's 21 years old, and he's already got 2 series of sample sizes where he's absolutely balled out in. He was arguably the best player in that Memphis series last year too, and the Timberwolves got a really good player in him. And then it's really hard to watch, somebody like Karl Anthony Towns, who is kind of the opposite, and he's been very inconsistent in his playoff career. He had 2 nice games in that series against the Nuggets and 3 bad ones. You can't really have that when you're getting paid the Supermax. So you will see where that goes with him. A lot of questions this offseason, probably going to be revolved around Towns and his future of the team.
I think you nailed everything that you said. First of all, I'm going to give Jamal Murray a lot of respect here because it's not a fluke anymore. Jamal Murray is what he is in the playoffs. He is one of the most dynamic players in the postseason, and he just has this. It's kind of like Butler in Miami, where regular season you might see the guy cruise a little bit, and his numbers might not be, as dynamic as the player is, right? But then the playoffs come and they take a huge step forward. And Jamal Murray did that. He did that in the bubble, obviously. Then he got hurt, and now he's finally healthy again, and he showed it again. He was virtually unstoppable, and Minnesota wasn't defending him poorly. The degree of difficulty on his shots were ridiculous and
insane.
There's that feeling as a fan when there's another star on another team, and if they scare you or don't, that usually knows or that usually separates the ones from the not ones. And I'll tell you this, like Jamal Murray does give you that superstar fear when he's on the other team. And I think that is a very strong indication of what he really is. And truly, like, if Denver wins a championship, I don't think the offense is going to be the issue because I think they have a number one and number two. It's going to come down to how they defend. And that is definitely really scary. But I think in terms of having the number two question answered, I think Jamal Murray has shown that he has enough up his disposal to be a number two option, especially if Jokic is his top four player in the world. So I totally agree there. And honestly, I'm just going to say it right now. Series just started. I had Denver in 6 because I think Murray and Jokic is going to be matching Booker and KD, while I think the altitude and the home court advantage will be so beneficial for Denver since Phoenix is so top heavy. Like 88% of their offense comes from the starters. And that's really hard to replicate when you're playing in the altitude. So I'm just going to put that out there. And for Minnesota, look, it was a lot of the trends that have been there before. Anthony Edwards is a superstar. Anthony Edwards is going to be a superstar. I think Anthony Edwards is going to be a top 2 player in the NBA. We'll talk about that later, but I made a list of the future top 55 players in 2030. It'll be a crapshoot, but I feel pretty good about the top. And I just think that's who he is. He's a playoff riser. He's a dynamic 3-level, 2-way wing. That's what you want, and he has the it factor. Anthony Edwards is great. Karl Anthony Towns, 3rd postseason of his career, and all of them were the same. Truly. All of them, he's still, like, I wouldn't say they're completely the same. I mean, this series was sort of like the Houston series where Cat is a disaster the first couple games, and then when the season feels like it's already over, he kind of responds and plays a little better, but, it feels like it's over. And obviously his second playoff series, he was very up and down. And this year, like, half of his playoff games are good, half of them are awful. And when you're a Supermax player, that is unacceptable. And when I told you there's that element of fear that's really important when separating the ones from the not ones, I don't think Cat scares anybody. Nobody is on the other team fearing Cat. I think they fear Edwards. I even think they fear Rudy to an extent in the interior defensively. They don't fear Cat. And that is a question Minnesota has to answer this offseason because it's complicated. The CBA is making it really hard to keep everybody because all your flexibility is gone. You can't put money in trades. You can't trade picks, which doesn't even matter for Minnesota, but that's something to mention. And it's a very harsh new CBA in terms of keeping expensive rosters. And if Minnesota keeps everybody, they'll be on track for that. So they'll have to make a decision on Cat. And you can't keep Nas, Cat, Rudy, Ant, and Jaden on the same roster in a year. You just can't.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to pay for those guys.
So they got to figure out, like, okay, what's the next step? And I don't know what they're going to do this summer. My gut is they're going to run it back and kick the can down the road a little longer. But, it's something to look at.
Which isn't like a horrible idea to me. Like, I would be like fine with this team running it back. I think there's still, the chance they can figure it out. Like, I don't think, it's going to take just like 30, 40 games for Cat to learn a whole new position that he hasn't played since college when Willie Cauley-Stein was a center at Kentucky. But it was a really weird series in the sense for Cat that he couldn't do anything in isolation. He's been like one of the best isolation scorers in basketball for a long time. And even that Memphis series, even when he was, struggling, he was still scoring in isolation. It was like just the dumb turnovers and offensive defensive fouls in that series. But this series, he just had a complete inability to do anything in one-on-one situations, which I don't think I've ever seen from him before.
Yeah, we have.
So
we saw it in his first playoff, in his second playoff. But
like this new version of him since, Tibbs was gone and he's became more of a 3-point, centered type player and perimeter oriented. But it was weird to see. I wouldn't be completely opposed to running it back, but I wouldn't be completely opposed to making a major roster shift either.
Yeah, I think that Minnesota has a year at most to make a decision. The reason why I say a year is because Cat's Supermax extension is kicking in a year on July 1st, 2024. And all of a sudden, he's getting a $20 million pay grade, and it becomes that much more difficult to make the money work and the trades work. So they have a year to figure this out. And that's also when Ant and Jaden's contracts kick in as well. So it's tough. And look, we can say what we think about Cat. I think you're more in on him than I am. But Cat does have a lot of excuses. He came into this year, came in sick, right? Lost a lot of weight, didn't do training camp. Once he starts to finally add some momentum, he gets hurt and then comes back and has to adjust to a brand new team with a new point guard, with a newly realized Jaden McDaniels, and obviously the Rudy Gobert thing was still working itself out. So he has a lot of excuses and a lot of reasons why you could run it back. I just don't trust Cat. That's just me. I don't trust him because I think Cat is way too. I think Cat gets really caught up into his head. I think Cat is an overthinker. I think Cat feels weight on his shoulders even when it's not necessary. And that's what happened in the playoffs. I'll never forget that second quarter play. I forgot what game it was. But Cat's struggling, and he's trying to get something going. And he wants to get like some backdoor action on the right corner done, right? And when it wasn't working, he was like getting that like angry-ish face he does and trying to do that. Go that way. And while that's developing, literally he made someone collapse on him, which led to a wide open Jalen Noel and a backdoor cut. And if he wasn't overthinking the game, that is the most simple play. And Cat, you did your job. You used your star power gravity to get somebody else open, which he was trying to do, but he was so caught up on that first option, he couldn't improvise. Like, those plays always make me wonder, like, is Cat just too in his head to be in these type of moments? I think so. I think that's the answer. Yes.
I think that's a very legit possibility for him. And I don't know. It's happened so many times now. It's hard to trust him in the playoffs. Like, I thought he would work a lot better as like a 2A type player, and Ant's the 1A, but it didn't work this postseason. I think, there's still upside in giving him another chance next year, but at the same time, you have a lot to lose too, because if next year doesn't work out and you can't find a trade partner at the deadline,
Yeah.
then you're probably never going to find a trade partner, because who's going to take a guy that you really want to get rid of who's not working out, that's getting paid, 50 to 60 million the next 4 years. So yeah, it's going to be a gamble probably if they don't trade him. But at the same time, you can maybe look at it as a gamble because you're trading away, an
It's a
all
gamble
NBA type guy.
regardless. It's a
Yeah.
gamble regardless. Thank goodness very smart guys hopefully are making these decisions, because I'm honestly so split down the middle on what they should do this summer. Like, I think they deserve a summer to figure it out and see what the product is. So then you have a sample size of knowing who the odd man out is. We know it's somebody. We know it's one of those three bigs. We just don't know which big it is. So having more sample to just like pay Nas right now and then have Cat, Rudy, and Nas and figure it out from there, that would be great. But then you have to consider the value. Like, what are the odds? Is there a higher probability that you can get value for Cat right now or value for him next year? And Minnesota's got to figure that out too. And furthermore, what are the odds of this working? You got to also you have to mix those two ideas out to make a firm decision, right? Is there a better chance that it's not going to work and his value goes down next year? Is there a higher probability you can get more value for him right now? And is there a case where Cat just proves to be that guy and you don't trade him? You don't trade Rudy, you just trade Nas. And I mean, those are tough questions, and I don't know the answer to those questions. And I don't think anybody does, which makes me think they're going to kick it down the road, which is an understandable position because you could probably still get a lot for Cat at the deadline next year if he's healthier. So that's personally where I think they're going. I think they're just going to keep everybody and then just kick the can down the road 1 year and then figure out who the odd man is out by either February or June next year. But I think there's a lot of possibilities. I really do.
Very interesting offseason upcoming for the Wolves.
It might be nothing. It might be something. Maybe next year's the offseason. I have a tough time seeing Rudy get knocked. I understand that collision between he and Kyle Anderson. I just don't think that was as major as people pointed it out to be. That was always my read on it. I think that was a highly emotional. I think Rudy, emotional guy as it is, but also dealing with some pretty excruciating back pain, which I can see messing with his decision making. Stuff like that happens, So I'm not saying I'm justifying him punching his teammate. I'm just saying I don't think it was a okay, it's over type of thing. So
yeah,
Yeah, Minnesota, we'll see what they do. But let's transition to the next series, Lakers versus Grizzlies. Lakers handed it to them. 6-game series, beat them by 40 in game 6. Memphis was dead in the water. And Zach, I know where I'm going to go with this, but I want to hear where you're going with this.
Well, Dylan Brooks got his 40. That's for sure. That last game, Lakers beat him by 40. Yeah, I mean, that was really entertaining for me to watch. Obviously, I mean, I wanted the Lakers to win this series. I feel like a lot of Wolves fans actually wanted, I don't know why they wanted the Grizzlies, but I mean, it was fun. Like Dylan Brooks shot 32% from the field in this series. After watching that, I've seen stat charts with offensive points added and defensive points added, and he's literally the worst in the playoffs on the negative side for those. But I mean, it was a really, really good series to the Lakers. That team just has so much depth. I have some big questions with some of Darwin Ham's rotational players. I don't know why Malik Beasley's playing legit minutes every night. He's been really rough this series. I just don't understand it. He's being brought in to be a high level 3-point volume shooter, and he's got the high volume going for him, but he does not have the makes going. I don't know the numbers exactly, but he is shooting really poor from deep ever since he came to the Lakers. I don't know why you don't have somebody like Lonnie Walker in his place. D'Angelo Russell had an inconsistent series. It was really looking like a repeat of last year for a while. He had a nice game at the end. But yeah, Anthony Davis also really inconsistent on offense, but I mean, he was so good on defense. He was absolutely commanding the paint, and LeBron James did what he usually does. It was a really nice series to the Lakers, and I mean, I will probably talk about them versus the Warriors here soon, but I think that's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, totally. I thought the Lakers were incredibly impressive. It looks like grown-ups versus arrogant children this series. I think there was a next level of maturity and determination from the Lakers. I thought AD was great. I thought the interior pressure, obviously Reeves is really good. Rui Hashimura was really good. LeBron was really good. I think this Lakers team has proven to me that I think this team has the highest ceiling in the Western Conference because what do they do well? They dominate the paint on both ends of the floor. And I think that's where it starts. They're a better rebounding team than pretty much any other Western Conference team available right now. They're the deepest, you can argue. They have championship experience. You got LeBron, you got AD. They got I'm struggling to see who I'm picking over the Lakers right now because I feel like the Warriors and Nuggets have more holes than they do. And to the D'Angelo Russell thing, whatever. I mean, D'Lo, I'm getting attacked by Lakers Twitter right now because I don't know, because I said I predicted he was going to have a bad series, and he did. But then he had one teaser game like he always does, like he did in the play-in game last year. And now I'm getting attacked for it, and I'm just like, okay, you guys are rookies in the D'Angelo Russell experience. You guys will figure it out later. You guys were figuring it out, but then the little teaser,
Got him.
Got him a little bit, so whatever. But outside D'Angelo Russell, who cares? Lakers are really good. They're really good in the NBA, and I think they're going to make the finals. I really do. And this series was the best thing to happen to Memphis. I think that's my biggest takeaway overall. This was the best thing because last year they stole the hearts of the NBA. And that is because they adopted that like 2017-18 Philadelphia Eagles underdog mindset. They're the bad boys, they're the kids, they're just overly competitive, they're loud, they're going to talk, and they're just going to drive and try to prove to you that they are one of the best in the NBA because nobody believes in them, right? Like they had this underdog mindset that was refreshing to a lot of people. But then this year, it converted from underdog mindset to arrogance. This was an arrogant basketball team this year that went from, okay, we're the underdogs trying to prove to everybody that we're really good to, there's nobody who could beat us. I'm fine in the West, right? It was this very arrogant mindset. And that starts with Ja Morant. Like, he didn't take a leap after his third year. He didn't at all. And he gets in trouble off the court. And his game, like, when the moments got the brightest, they couldn't back it up because that movie, The Christmas Story? I forget the bully's name, but they're like that bully who's always picking on people. And then once somebody responds, they just start crying. And that's what they did yesterday. The Lakers punched them in the mouth, and they just folded and lost by 40 despite all the talk that they were doing. And just the intensity this year was not there. And I think they needed, because look, they're still kids. They're a very young team. They probably needed this moment just to get humbled, to wake up. John Morant in particular, right? All those guys on that team. I think they needed a wake up call. And I believe this series showed them that they're not nearly as great as they think they are. And you got to work for success, man. You're not going to just get it because you're loud and you talk a lot. You know, this isn't AAU, dude. Like, this is the NBA, man. So I think that's really good. I hope to see, like, we'll see what this team is made of next year and going forward now, this offseason. Like, how does John Morant respond to the off the court stuff? How does John Morant expand his game? Because in reality, John Morant has some very large limitations that prevent him currently from being a number one player. He is not a very efficient scorer. He can't shoot off the dribble. His jumper is teetering on Giannis bad, Giannis concerning. I'm not very confident. Bad. He just doesn't have much arc. He shoots it from his chest. It's stiff. It's flat. He's not a natural shooter. And he needs to add to that. He needs to take better care of his body because I think he takes his body for granted. He is so out of control when he drives because I think he thinks he's invincible. He needs to cut that crap out of his mind. He's got to cut all the stuff, the invincibility. Like, dude, you're not invincible. We saw that off the court this year. You can't get away with everything. On the NBA court, look, you haven't played over 67 games in your career yet. You're not invincible, dude. You got to figure out your body. You got to figure out how to take good care of your body. And that starts with adding a jumper. That starts with being more aware as a driver. Improving your defense is also a big must for him. We'll see what they're made of. I think if they respond in a very mature sense, I think my stock on this team will go up significantly. And if they don't, with all the adversity and I guess, humbling that they're experiencing right now, I'll just say this is what they are. They get punched in the mouth and they don't know how to respond. But if they do respond well, I'll be very impressed and I'll have a lot of great things to say about them.
Yeah, I like those points you brought up. They're kind of like, a really immature, like 9th or 10th grader in high school that, needs to grow up a little bit, with the setting around them. I don't know. I think, Dylan Brooks, I think he's an unrestricted free agent this offseason. I know he's a free agent. I don't know if I would want to bring him back. I don't know what he is other than a distraction right now. I think he's a plus defender, but on offense, I don't know why they gave him such a big of a leash. They kept allowing him to have the green light whenever he touched the ball. It seemed like from behind the 3-point arc, and someone of his caliber in the shot selection, I don't like that. I don't know what type of market he's going to retrieve this offseason, but I don't think he's somebody that I would really, look at it and saying like I need to bring back. But the team definitely needs to grow up a little bit, or a lot, I should say. Obviously having guys like Steven Adams and Brandon Clark hurt, but with those guys,
those guys are big losses, especially against the Lakers. Those are big losses.
Yeah. Like, I don't think they win the series still, but I think having those guys would help out a lot, and bringing them back next year with maybe a slightly different roster and hopefully, a little more mature, they'll be a lot better next year probably.
Yeah, for sure. I'm very excited to see how they respond because I think this is the offseason that we will know what this Memphis team is. Like, this stuff they were pulling the last 2 years might just be a stage. It might be. We'll see, and we'll know. That's all I'm going to say it as. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with Tyus, what they do with Dylan Brooks. I think those are the two names that we'll be looking at the most this summer in terms of, will they move those guys, right? And is Memphis one of those next teams with the assets they have that'll go all in for the next star available? Because that team doesn't have a number one half-court creator right now, or a number two, really. Bane's really good as a number three. Jaren Jackson is too limited as a creator to be one of those top two guys. John Morant also, I would say, is a little too limited right now because he can't shoot. So those are the next steps, I think, for them. I think the first and most important is growing up. Number two, finding, I guess, another alpha scorer. I think this team really needs that. And maybe it comes from development. Maybe Jaren Jackson Jr. develops that. But I think he is multiple years away from developing the repertoire or the quote-unquote bag to create off the dribble. But we'll see.
I mean, with how they've drafted over the recent years, I really feel like they can build a fantastic, core around their stars. And I think that's something really good they got for them. They always find guys in the late first round, even when they seem like they might reach on guys higher in the draft, seems like they always land on them. We'll see what a lot of people like Kenny Lofton.
Yeah, we'll see.
From
He's interesting. He had that crazy game 82.
40-point game.
Yeah.
But yeah, they got a lot of interesting young guys on the roster. They're still one of the younger teams in the league. They still got, a lot of years to figure it out. But when you become, the 2 seed 2 years in a row, the expectations are going to be really high.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to have to figure that out. But yeah, it was a fun series for the Lakers for sure. It was fun to watch.
I'm just so happy that Memphis fans are off of my TL, bro. Oh my gosh. I was talking basketball with this one fan, and he just, for some reason, he couldn't take a basketball debate, and he turned it into, you're a Timberwolves fan. I'm a Memphis fan. We're not on the same level. We're trying to win championships. Wow. You guys are trying to get out of the first round. It's like, one, you haven't won a championship. You haven't even gone to the conference finals. Number two, welcome to mediocrity, buddy.
Welcome to Cancun, buddy.
Welcome to Cancun. Join us in our mediocrity. I'm not going to defend the Timberwolves. I 100% agree with you, but Come on, dude. So, yeah, I'm happy that is over temporarily. And let's move to the next series that just ended less than an hour ago from the moment we're recording this on Sunday, April 30th. Kings versus Warriors. And this was a great series.
Wow.
I thought it was going to be, I think many of us expected it to be a great series, and it turned out to be. So, Zach, I want to hear some of your takeaways from this series.
Well, that was an awesome series. I loved the home crowd environments for both teams. Sacramento, their fans definitely deserved the playoffs this year. I was hoping the Kings could have pulled through. I just think the Warriors' experience got a little bit, too much for them at the end. Stephen Curry, 50 points in Game 7. That is absolutely nuts. That's one of the best playoff games I've watched in the last few years. I mean, almost ever. I thought De'Aaron Fox had a pretty good series, except for today it wasn't as good. He's in foul trouble. Yeah. But overall, I was a fan of his series. I know you want to talk about Sabonis probably in length. Wasn't a big fan of that. I'm pretty sure he got out-rebounded by Looney today on the offensive glass, meaning I think Looney had more offensive rebounds today than Sabonis had rebounds. I would have to look back at it. But at the time I looked, like halfway through the third quarter when the Warriors were going on a crazy run, I think Looney had like 3 more offensive boards. I mean, he was absolutely killing Sabonis today. I like Keegan Murray. I thought it was an okay series for him. Mm-hmm. Like to be a rookie and shoot over, I don't know what he shot today for. I can't remember what he shot for today for 3, but about 40% on the series. That is impressive, especially how he was shooting in Chase Center. I think they made the correct pick at 4, even though I think Ivy could be better in the future. I think he was the correct fit for the team, and he's just going to be the better fit overall, going forward, because they need more of that type of archetype other than another guard like Ivy. Monk was fantastic off the bench, and Jordan Poole might be one of the most inconsistent players in basketball.
Yeah, I think those are a lot of good takeaways. Fox, ton of credit to him. I think he has cemented himself as a legit top 22 player in the NBA. I don't think you can have him any lower, and I don't have any problem if you have him closer to 15 to 16 than 22. He earned that. He's an all-NBA guard. He is one of the best closers in the league. He was tough. Great. Game 7, I think it showed guys like Steph are in a different class still, and that's okay, right? I think Fox, while he was the most clutch closer in the NBA this year, I don't want to use the finger thing as an excuse. I think it's lazy. I think it's lame. Watching the game late in the fourth quarter, he was settling and he was forcing things. He was forcing passes. He was out of control driving the ball. He was a turnover machine. He wasn't shooting well, and he's not a shooter, so he shouldn't be shooting much. He should be getting to the paint. He just wasn't controlling the game like he usually does. Maybe the finger had a little bit to do with it, but I don't justify the finger thing when you're making mental lapses in transition and you're forcing passes overall and settling. I'm not going to put way too much weight on the finger thing. He needs to be better there. But overall, this series, he was tremendous. I have 95% good things to say about De'Aaron Fox. He's great. And you talked about it. The guard play was great. Malik Monk totally outplayed Jordan Poole.
Awesome.
This series. And Keegan Murray, fantastic. And look, I think Sacramento has a really good rotation of offensive firepower from the guard and the perimeter overall. Ton of shooting, pace, guys who fit with De'Aaron Fox. Sabonis is a fit with De'Aaron Fox, but I've said this for years. He's not a playoff player. It's impossible to win deep in the playoffs anchored by a center who can't shoot or defend. It can't happen. It doesn't happen. Yeah. And it's not that he can't defend. He is burnt toast in the paint. Burnt toast. Yep. He is so lucky Alperen Şengün's in this league. He's so lucky, or he'll be the undisputed worst rim protector in the NBA, and Nikola Jokic is in the league too. So, look, it's Sabonis. We're going to have conversations about him down the road. Like, this year was a great honeymoon experience for him, but a couple years down the road, I think there'll be more real and necessary conversations about him. But he's still a star. De'Aaron Fox is amazing. I thought he was great this series. I think that, like you said, all those teams, Sacramento's going to have a fun offseason. Like, their fans deserve this year. This is an awesome and fun season. Game 7 hurts today, but that was a so fun series, and that was the most fun Sacramento team I have ever seen in my life. So that is a great first step, and the next steps to going from really good to great. You know, it's going to start on the defensive end, and I think it's going to start with some tough conversations down the road with Sabonis. But for now, I think Sacramento should live it up and see what happens next year. And Golden State, I mean, this team is flawed. This team is flawed. I don't trust anybody to be the number 2 on this team. We saw Klay Thompson was a disaster today. Andrew Wiggins isn't a number 2. Jordan Poole, disaster today. They don't have a number 2, but I think the interior, I think, for Golden State is as strong as it's ever been because Kevon Looney's taken an awesome leap. He outplayed Domantas Sabonis this series, and he was great. I think, you know, Kuminga and guys are great. I think Golden State, while I don't think this is a championship team, I think it's a constant reminder of how great Stephen Curry is and how you have to build off from there. And, you know, it's hard to bet against them fully. I'm not going to say there's no way they beat the Lakers in this next series. I don't think that is ever the case when you have Stephen Curry on your basketball team. But I think this Game 7 just proved the class Stephen Curry is in. I think people forget that sometimes. I think people get caught up into the Giannis's and the Embiids and guys like that for the best player in the world. Steph is still very much in that conversation, and he probably is still the best, even though you can argue him and those guys and LeBron and Jokic. There's no consensus number 1 guy, but that's the number 1 dynasty player, man. And as long as he's on that team, they're going to keep beating teams like Sacramento, who are really good, but are still figuring it out in terms of experience. So that was a really, really fun series. Not a lot of defense, but just a lot of pace and energy and intensity. And at the end of the day, when the season was on the line, it came down to the team with more experience. You know, Fox is going to get better in those late moments, but this is an experience for him, and that's a great thing. So I think both teams come out of this series victorious long term.
Yeah, I mean, next step for the Kings is just trying to get more, you know, defensive pieces around this core. You know, they have too many poor defenders in that roster. They don't really have a lot of, you know, great defenders yet. And yeah, it's going to be a question for Sabonis. I don't think that'll happen this upcoming year. I think he'll at least have another year with the team because I think.
Oh yeah, they're not moving off of Sabonis. I'm not even suggesting that. That's a different conversation, like 2 years down the road.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, I mean, you know, hopefully you can try. You know, I mean, I like Keegan Murray a lot. Hopefully he can, you know, be a shot blocker at times for them next year. Hopefully he can have a big, you know, second year jump. I do question how much his game will grow compared to other rookies because he's already had, you know, the 3 or 4 years of extra development in college because he's already like 22. But I still think he was a really nice pick at 4. But yeah, I'm really excited to see what this Kings team does in the future. And I mean, we were not really expecting this. I mean, you were talking, you know, preseason, how this is a team that you could see like making the play-in or maybe like the 8th seed for the playoffs.
Yeah, I was like, this team could make the playoffs. Like, they have a chance. I didn't see a 3 seed. No.
And then, like, I feel like, you know, most people didn't even really think that. Like, I feel like you were kind of on a boat kind of being like higher on the team at that time. And then all of a sudden they come out and get the 3 seed. So, I mean, a pretty successful season for them still.
It was a great season for them.
But yeah, I mean, they got a really rough matchup round 1 with the Warriors. I thought this team was capable of winning the series, but, you know, they got the wrong matchup. I mean, the defense just was not it. And I mean, props to Fox. He was so much better this year than I thought he would be. He really took a leap.
Yeah, we talked about it. Last year I kind of like I called a big year for him because like De'Aaron Fox with good spacing is just it's an entirely different player. Like he had a disappointing season last year, and it made people question like, is this guy really a star? But he had bottom 10 percentile spacing as a slashing guard. That's not very beneficial. But his
Yeah.
best year, I think, was his third year before that, and they had good shooting around him that year. So Sacramento did a great job addressing the shooting this season, and they had one of the best shooting teams in the league this year. And that helped De'Aaron Fox take an efficient 25-point per game, all NBA-esque leap. And I think as long as you have floor spacing and pace around De'Aaron Fox, you're going to get a player perennially in the all NBA conversation.
Yeah. I wonder what all NBA team he's looking at this year
Probably
to make.
three, right?
Three.
Because you have, I think, Shea, Luka, Steph, and Mitchell are ahead.
Would
They'd be ahead on all NBA, right?
would Jaylen Brown be a guard too?
I don't know what they're going to put him at.
Yeah. It depends. Yeah, that's a weird conversation too. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see what happens there. But it was fun. That was the best first round series in my opinion to watch. That was
Yeah,
awesome.
it won 7 games, and it's also the proximity element because you're in California, 2 hours away.
Mm-hmm.
So the fans are kind of mixed matched. And I think there was that little like intensity. Like you're seeing Warriors Twitter right now, and people are going crazy. I think there was a rivalry brewing that series that's going to be interesting to forecast down the road. So it was great.
Sure.
And let's go. Last series we'll talk about in the Western Conference: Suns versus Clippers. Hard to get like firm takeaways from this series because obviously Paul George didn't play, Kawhi Leonard hurt his knee late, but Phoenix, it was not quite as pretty of a series as you'd
Iffy.
hope situationally. And, Russell Westbrook was great. So those are just some ideas I threw out. Obviously, Westbrook had that 3 for 19 game, but
Yeah.
what do you think, Zach?
I mean, that was an interesting series. I think that the Clippers definitely could have won that series if George and Leonard were healthy for all 7 games. But the Suns, like, my big question with the Suns is 6 through 9 in that roster, or even like 5 through 9 in that
Oh,
roster.
yeah.
Like, it is really, really bad. They really need someone like they just need like another like MLE like $12 million type player, and that team could benefit so much off of that. Like I'm so confident in what their like starting 5 could be, whether either you want to do like Josh Kogi or Torrey Craig at the 5. I mean at the 3, which Torrey Craig had a really nice first round, but once like after 7 minutes into the quarter, when you got to start putting in bench guys and you got to start subbing out like the Chris Pauls and the DeAndre Aytons, it gets rough. Like those guys are not producing off the bench. And I know Suns fans are not happy with some of the players that are actually playing. What Monty Williams is doing, they're not really happy about. Like Campaign hasn't really got any run this postseason. Terrence Ross hasn't really got any. TJ Warren hasn't got like any. And just the guys that run off the bench, they're not really producing. Shamit and forgetting their name. I mean, Josh Kogi hasn't done as much offensively as you'd need, but we know that he's not that guy. I don't know. It's a weird team. I do think Denver wins this upcoming series. Hopefully, I mean, this offseason, they're going to have to just figure out how to get role players around, their big 4 players. And they got to hope that, somebody like Chris Paul doesn't take like a even bigger, fall off. I mean, I was looking at a stat. I mean, Chris Paul has absolutely taken a fall off this year. I think he's hit 12 shots at the rim the whole year. I don't know if he's literally made 12 rim attempts the whole year.
No way. That's true.
It was on, that NBA University guy on Twitter. He posted that during the Clippers series about his regression. My gosh, he's only hit like, I don't know how many he's hit this postseason, but during the regular season, he only had 12 makes under the basket. There's definitely aggression there. But yeah, for that Clippers team, my biggest takeaway is I think Russell Westbrook has hopefully found his home for the next few years. I was really impressed with his series overall. I think he was averaging mid-20s per game.
Yeah, he averaged 23.
Yeah, like that was nice. I think he's a guy that the team should really try to keep. They got a new stadium coming up. I don't know what they're going to do with Paul George and Kawhi. Those guys can just never stay on the court together. It's
Mhm.
unfortunate. You gave up Shea and all those. I mean, people talk about the Rudy Gobert trade, but like the Clippers gave up a guy who is now better than Paul George and all those picks and then some other, role players in that deal. Looking back, I mean, we'll see what the Gobert deal looks like in 4 years. But yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know
I'm
what
done
this
talking about the
Clippers
Rudy
team.
Gobert deal. It is what it is. I don't
Yeah,
care about the Rudy deal anymore. But
it
uh,
happened.
I mean, in terms of the stadium conversation, like no way they would let go of Kawhi and Paul
Yeah,
George
they won't.
because like how are you going to sell your stadium product to people without those two?
Yeah.
So I just can't see that happening. But you're right. Like this is another year that should make your doubts at a 9 to 10 level of if this team can actually stay together, healthy over the duration of the season. Kawhi Leonard's body. People talk about Anthony Davis's body. Kawhi's been worse than
Hmm.
Anthony Davis in terms of durability. He can't catch a break. It's really unfortunate. And Paul George has always been kind of banged up here and there. So those two are not reliable physically. And there's a lot of like stuff you see, rumors that there's just not a great locker room culture there. I saw some forgot exactly who said this, but somebody who claimed to be a reporter of some sort for the Clippers talked about like this a weird ego dynamic where I forgot the super specific details, but just a lot of people who don't like each other and don't like the pecking order in that room.
Hmm.
There's some buzz there. I'm not confirming anything. I don't know, but I've seen that stuff on Twitter. So maybe that is something to look out for. So this Clippers team is definitely looking like a mess right now, and they're kind of stuck with it the next couple of years with how much they invested, and all they can really do is fingers crossed, like hope it comes together one season because the talent level is there. And despite all this stuff about the drama, they're still a top 5 seed and they've been to a conference finals, right? So I think that's where we have to stand with the Clippers. There's not really much you can say about them because they can't really make major changes. And for the Suns, I'll give you a number 88% of their scoring comes from their starters. They
That's
don't have
crazy.
one go-to scorer on the bench. They switch between Corey or Craig and Nkogi as they're like 6-man-ish, and Landry Shamit's been a disaster in the playoffs, as you said. Like Campaign, T.J. Warren, Terrence Ross, they haven't got much burn in the playoffs. Just not a lot of faith in those guys, and that's why I have Denver winning the series because I think depth matters in the altitude, and Phoenix I think is going to get tired late in games against Denver. So
Yeah.
I Phoenix is in a weird spot. They're going to have to find ways to either maximize its bench or find some really good players on the margins or even in the offseason. I talked to my friend about this. This is early. We'll probably talk about this in a future episode, but maybe you trade Ayton for 2 players. And I suggested Ayton and Looney. I'm not sure, or Poole and Looney. Not sure the Warriors would do that. Maybe they would, maybe they wouldn't. But something like that. Like they need to start adding depth to that team and interior toughness, obviously. So yeah, Phoenix is a weird team too. I this is the only team in the Western Conference I didn't feel better about after winning the series. I feel worse about Phoenix because I don't think they're deep enough. Like I don't think they could beat the Lakers. Do you?
No, I don't. I don't think they beat the Lakers. I mean, it's like they're like the opposite team to they need depth. They need depth with Chris Paul, who's like 38 now. Durant's getting older.
Mm-hmm.
Like they have they're top guys at the top that are producing all these points for you, like the 88%. They can't play as much. They're getting a little older, and it's gonna be harder on their bodies to do what Devin Booker is more so doing. Like I trust Devin Booker to maybe play 40 minutes a night, but Chris Paul can't be doing that anymore. It's not feasible for him. You need somebody off the bench. Like you need like what Campaign was doing in 2021 to happen again
Yeah.
is what you really need right now.
I think Phoenix, I think your best chance of beating Denver is trying to tap into that bench. At least try to do it.
Yeah.
Right? You don't want to run your older top heavy players to the ground in the second round as it is, right? Like it's going to take a lot of work for those guys to beat Denver on their own, and that's not a favorable opportunity as it is. But even if you get past that, like you're in the conference finals, you don't want to lose energy at that point. But credit to Devin Booker, he was the best player in the first round this postseason. Him and Jimmy were the two best. and he was unreal. I think he averaged over 37 in the first round, and he
Yeah,
was
37.
absolutely unstoppable. But yeah, I think
Insane.
Phoenix, they're going to have to find ways to tap into that bench more this year and going forward. And for the Clippers, just goodness gracious, be healthy and like each other. So
Yeah, they got to figure it out.
now that was the first half of the episode. Now let's transition to the Eastern Conference and talk about the Bucks and Heat. I think this was the most surprising first round series. I
I think
had
so too.
Bucks in 5. I got the name amount correct. I got the game amount correct. I just got the wrong team. I got the wrong team. I had Bucks in 5. It was Heat in 5. And a lot of disturbing trends on the Milwaukee side, in my opinion, and Jimmy Butler trends on the other side. Zach, what do you think?
I mean, this is another team where I'm like, there might need to be decisions made about this Bucks core. I mean, we've had this conversation with the Timberwolves,
Stop mentioning the Timberwolves. I hate them right now. Stop talking about them. They're
we'll ban
annoying.
them.
I don't want to hear about them.
We'll ban them from the rest of the show. But
ban them for life.
I believe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the Bucks are the oldest team in the league.
Yeah, they are.
I think
almost
so.
41 years old on average.
Yeah. Their youngest players in the rotation in this playoffs were Bobby Portis and Grayson Allen, who are both 27 years old. They just don't have young talent on the roster. They need to figure it out a little bit. Marjan Beauchamp, we'll see what he turns into. I don't think he's going to be somebody that's going to be like a legit franchise pillar on a championship-like team. I don't think that's going to be really in his cards. Not that it really should be expected from a late first-round pick. But, man, playoff Jimmy Butler, that was absolutely nuts. Had one of the best games in playoff history with that. I think it was game 4 win. The Heat had 6 guys shoot over 40% from 3 on over 3 attempts per game. They were shooting the lights out. I think it might be time to fire Coach Budenholzer. He had an absolute meltdown game 5 with some of the, not even calling a timeout when the game is tied with a second left, when you could advance the ball, and just throwing the ball into Giannis, basically wasting that chance when you have guys that can make catch and shoot threes. That's like a fireable offense in an elimination game by itself. We'll see what happens with him. That championship they won in 2021 saved his job. He was probably going to get fired if they didn't do something that postseason, and they did win the championship. So deservedly so, he did get to stay. But if that didn't happen, he would have been gone. I know there was questions before that, that championship run about his future with the team. And yeah, I think he's going to be one of the hottest coaches on the hot seat this year.
You said it. I think Spoelstra just absolutely dominated Budenholzer, and obviously, the timeout management late was really weird against Miami. I think that lost them the game in a lot of ways. But also, I just want to say this: I'm not putting weight into this. I'm just saying it. He did have an awful week during the playoffs.
Yeah, he did.
His brother passed away in a car crash. So prayers to that family. So I'm not going to go too much into the Budenholzer element, even though I think there's a lot of valid questions there. But I'll say it like this. I think Milwaukee's window is closed. I think this was the last year. And the reason why I say this, while Giannis is great, Chris Middleton is starting to pile up injuries. He is starting to regress. Drew Holiday, I just don't think he could be a number 2. I don't think he is as gifted enough of a scorer to be a number 2. Brook Lopez, he was slightly trending down before this year. Then he had a big pop-up year. How much faith do we have that he's going to maintain this? Milwaukee has put in all of its first and second round picks and trades. All their second round picks basically went to the Jay Crowder deal, and he averaged 1 point per game on 25 true shooting in the first round.
Was used, yeah.
That was a flop. And Milwaukee's just, I don't see the assets to get better. I think they just got to hope these guys don't break down. And I don't think that's a favorable position. And we saw it as it was this year. They got knocked out in the first round against an inferior team, with that being the case. So I'm struggling to see where the up is going after this year. I thought this was going to be I thought Milwaukee was going to win the championship. I thought this was the year they were going to trend up and kind of ride off to the sunset, and Giannis gets 2 rings there, and we'll figure out what happens there. But this year was just such a missed opportunity. I think the biggest missed opportunity Milwaukee has had in Giannis's career. So this offseason will be really interesting for them. And for Miami, I'm just going to say it like this. Butler is incredible. Butler, while he isn't a tier 1 talent, he is a tier 1 person. He's
He
got it,
is.
man. He's got it. He is.
He's got it.
If you know what they say, the dog in them thing. Like if there's 5 players that you have to mention in the NBA, is like they got the dog in them. He's in that 5. There's no
Oh, yeah.
question about that. He's got some of the most dog in him in the NBA among anybody. And I understand that's a horrible basketball analysis, but I think it's important to say that. And I think I think Miami's like depth is a concern. I don't think Bam is a trusted number 2 option, but because they got Jimmy, I think they have a chance to beat New York. So yeah, I think those are my takeaways.
And I think they will beat New York would be my guess. I think you also had that, but yeah, and they did this without Tyler Hero, which was pretty impressive.
Great
Who's
point. Great point.
one of their best players who broke his hand in game 1. But my question is just like, where does this Bucks core go now? Like, do you ship off pieces and trades? I don't like. You definitely don't move Giannis. You don't move, arguably the best player in basketball. But do you try to restructure everything around Giannis? Do you? I think my guess is they're probably going to try to, continue with this core and try to win again with the same guys next year. But you do have to figure out at some point, like, how are you going to, accumulate young talent?
Yeah,
Because
you're right.
when you're this good every year and you're picking like pick 28 through 30, you're not going to get good draft picks.
Mm-mm.
And you're trading away picks, obviously, the 5 second round picks for Crowder.
Yeah, that was a flop. Oh my gosh.
Like they kind of had to, make a really deep run this year, and they didn't do that. So I think their future is in a big question. My guess is they probably run it back with this core. I think they're going to try to give Brook Lopez his money this offseason. They're going to have so much on the cap. I think it's going to be like pushing 170 million in cap. Their luxuries bill is going to be insane. I think after next year, we might see some things, really, really shift with that team.
What else can they do? Like genuinely, like what else can they do to get this roster better?
It's going to have to be through trading guys. Like
what are you trading? What are you trading? Are you trading one of your core 4 players?
It might have to be, because how else are you going to get young guys? I mean, the only like maybe they could just completely wait it out until all of the guys are too old and the team is just not good enough, and then you're getting high draft picks. But that's probably a multi-year thing, because this team, like with this core, they're still gonna be a really good team for at least 3-4 more years.
I think that's aggressive. I think
as long as you have Giannis,
I think next year. I said it. I think their window's closed. I don't think they're a contender anymore. I don't think they're gonna be very good anymore.
I still think they'll be like, next year. I don't know what they'll be like. Maybe like the 3 seed, something like that. Maybe a little higher. But I don't think they're ever going to be a team with this core in the next 3-4 years that seeps into the play-in tournament. I think they'll always be a top 6 seed when you have those core 4 guys in your roster. But, if you keep those guys, I don't know how you're going to find the young talent. It's going to be weird. I think you probably try to run it back next year, though.
If the rumors are true that Houston is looking to package Jalen Green for a star player and lure in Harden,
maybe you go for him.
I think that's like the only route. Like, I don't know if they would take Holiday and like Beauchamp for Green or something. Yeah. I don't think that maybe that would be the swing they'd have to take and hope that Jalen Green becomes like what Ray Allen was for them so long ago. I guess that's the only way, but I don't see many paths of moving. I think you just kind of have to ride off to the sunset and hope they figure it out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they're at a tough spot. This year was a big missed opportunity. And let's move to the next series. Boston, Atlanta. You go, Zach.
This was definitely the series that I didn't tune into as much. I was really surprised with the Hawks extending the series to 6 at least. I'm hoping DeJounte Murray can control his motions. That was really weird, and he just like walked right into the official at the end of that game 5 loss, I believe it was, or game 4 loss going back to Boston. That was really weird. It was also weird not to see Derek White, who is maybe the 3rd best player on that team, not close out on the court on that big game 5 loss. I mean, White was awesome this year. I think he averaged 17 a game. He was a phenomenal addition from that. I believe they got him at the trade deadline last year.
Mm-hmm.
if I'm correct. He's been awesome. He's a plus defender, probably an all NBA type defender, and he's averaging close to 20 points per games. If this team wants to win a championship, you have to have somebody like Jason Tatum shoot the ball more consistently. You can't have a repeat of last year where it's like every other game he's shooting well from deep. His overall efficiency was on and off this series, and that was kind of the narrative last season, especially in the finals. So he's gonna have to figure that out. I think they will handle Philly, especially with Joel Embiid's injury. I think they'll handle them, probably in 6. But going forward, I think they're going to struggle if Tatum can't figure it out, and we'll see how he does this series against Philly. I'm really excited to see what he looks like.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree. I'm kind of upset though because you said that you didn't watch this series a lot, and this is the series I probably watched the least as well.
Yeah.
So people could correct me if I'm wrong, but I watched like bits of 3 games, and I would say the Jason Tatum consistency was a real thing. Jaylen Brown was the best player for them this series, and Boston was up 3-0, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then Atlanta stole 2 games, and then Boston closed it out. There is still like sprinkles of that immaturity that you question with Boston. Like they've kind of built a reputation this year as a team that is going to play down to competition when things are easy. And
Yep.
it feels like that's what happened again for Boston. There's still like this. Last year they were so special defensively, and it feels like this year they're not playing with the same energy, same buzz defensively. Part of it is I feel like Robert Williams is on the bench more now. He's not playing quite the minutes because they're trying to preserve his body. So having him not be the interior force all the time that he usually is, I think is a loss. And, Brown, I think Tatum and Brown have to defend better. Smart and Derek White do what they do, but there isn't that same, suffocation, the same physicality on the defensive end that we're accustomed to seeing with those guys. And I think Boston, if they win a championship this year, it's not going to be because they're going to outscore everybody. It's going to be because they rekindle that identity defensively. Like they're a good defensive team still because their personnel is excellent on that end. But they have to be back in that top 3 defensive conversation, in my opinion, for them to win a championship. And I think that they saw the bad side a little bit during the regular season in that aspect. And from what I saw in this first round as well, the immaturity in defense, like those are the questions with Boston. Like, how much are they going to tap into that two-way potential, especially on the defensive end of the floor?
Yeah, they have so many talented defenders in that roster, and a lot of it is just, locking in a little bit more and, figuring out more on the maturity side. Like Jaylen Brown, one of the worst off-ball defenders in basketball. He gets caught ball watching so much. He's definitely in that conversation for one of the worst ball watchers in the league. I've seen some stuff on Twitter over the last few days about that. But they have so many talented defenders on this roster. A thing I kind of found a little bit funny was Grant Williams really didn't play. I don't think did he play at all in the series? I don't think so.
I don't recall. Let me look up how many minutes he played.
Because I don't think he was in the rotation at all. And ever since he missed those 2 free throws in Cleveland
against Houston,
downhill.
Against Houston, or no, that was that Cleveland? That was
Cleveland. Yeah,
never mind. Yeah,
but I mean, for somebody who said that he wanted $20 million in the offseason per year, that's not happening. You can't be getting DMP'd in the playoff like that. I wonder if he starts to get run. I wonder if it was like a matchup thing with Atlanta, like they just didn't need him, or they didn't think he would work in this series. I kind of hope he plays more against Philly just because I want to see him play. But I like this Celtics team has so much upside defensively, and we'll see if they can kick into it.
Yeah, for sure. The Grant Williams thing, obviously his stock went up a lot last year, and it feels like he's kind of plateaued. And I think the trust factor is kind of drained as the year goes on because defensively he's a strong body, but he's not quite big enough inside. He's not quite agile enough in the perimeter. Not a lot of creation stuff, and he gets into mental lapses when there's adversity, it feels like. So he's not the most reliable young player. So yeah, he's not getting 20 million. But but I'm not sure what they thought about in the matchup aspect. Maybe they thought because Atlanta is pretty quick on the wing that they thought he would struggle with that because they got on the bench, they got the Sadiq Bays and the Jalen Johnsons and guys like that he would match up with. And I don't think AJ Griffin played a lot, which upsets me because I think AJ Griffin is awesome. And I think
Let him play.
He's going to be a really good player down the road. But yeah, I think Boston or Atlanta, also Trae Young, like he was great at the end of the series, but then
super inefficient.
But the first part of the series, he was horrible. And even his last game, he had a great first half in game 6 and fell off in the second half like crazy. There is that question with Trae Young. What is Trae Young? What is he? Because he is a high usage, heliocentric offensive talent, but kind of like in the Harden Luka element, but he's small and he's not quick. He's not incredibly like strong or explosive or anything. So when you put a big, strong defensive wing in the playoffs on him, he just struggles to create space. And it's another guy like, is this one of those just regular season guys? Like, is that what Trae Young is? And I think the answer is yes.
Yeah, I don't know what his future is. I don't think he can be a 1A, championship scoring option because of that. I think he gets way too limited when he's got like these like 6'5", 6'6", wings coming up to guard him.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just, I don't think that's gonna work. I don't know what you really do with him in the future. I mean, you keep him, but you gotta somehow build around him differently. He's gonna have to adapt his game if they want to win, at a high level in the future.
I agree.
Like he's got to become more off-ball oriented as a shooter. He's a really nice playmaker on ball, and he can be a nice isolation creator for sure. But he needs to be more off-ball oriented. They need to give DeJounte Murray probably more on-ball reps. Trae Young, can he do something on defense? Can he be serviceable in 4 years? I don't think so. But we'll see if he can do anything else on that end other than be really bad. That will be, something he hopefully works on throughout his career. But yeah, he's a really weird player because Instagram highlight people probably think he's one of the best players in basketball. But when you actually watch full games, you're like, well, this guy's a complete liability on defense. And this guy is actually like really not that efficient, especially this year as an on-ball scorer. So I don't know. I don't know what you do with Trae Young. He's going to have to adapt his game. That's the biggest thing he's going to have to do.
The only way I think he has a dying chance of being the guy Atlanta wants him to be is, like you said, he needs to be dynamic off the ball. Like Stephen Curry, like obviously Steph's a bigger, better athlete than Trae Young, and Trae's never going to shoot like Steph. I'm not even suggesting he has near the upside Steph does because Steph is a top 12 player ever. But Stephen Curry, like, what if he was a heliocentric James Harden player? Do we think he'd be athletic enough to create separation like that and be the guy he is right now? I don't think so. I think what makes Steph so dangerous is the fact he can do those on-ball things, but there's not a spot on the court where he can't operate, and there's always like these constant switches and movements that collapse the defense in ways that create openings on the court because of the way he moves off the ball, with the way he shoots the ball. And I think that's what makes him like a top 2 player in the league type of guy. And sure. I think with Trae Young, I think the only hope of him maybe becoming a top 10 player is if he takes some of those Stephen Curry things and, embraces off the ball play and, proves that he's a better shooter than he is by being more efficient as a shooter off the catch. I think the moment he's able to, make the defense collapse on gaps to create openings to allow Trae to open up his shooting, but also enhances his vision. Those things are big. I think that's what Trae needs to do. And if he's going to keep following this James Harden, Luka Doncic style of basketball, and I don't even think that's championship basketball, then there's definitely no way Trae Young could be a top 15 player.
Yeah, he's going to have to, figure it out. And it's just, off ball. Can he work more off ball? I'm trying to figure out what his usage rate was for this series because, I mean, I just I can't envision this dude running off ball that much. I don't know why, but I'm pulling up right now. 34%. So,
yeah,
like that's really high. I don't know what like somebody like Stephen Curry's what would be, but if he can dip that back down to the 20s, that would be nice. I mean, he's just got to, figure him out more off ball. He's a really good shooter still, despite if you just look at, straight up the base number. which was probably like mid 30s this year in the regular season. But
Hmm.
if he can just adapt more off ball and not rely on the ball being in his hands 24/7, then I think he could really elevate as a player.
100%. Totally agree. And now let's transition. We got two more series remaining to talk about in this episode. 76ers versus Brooklyn Nets. I don't think anybody gave Brooklyn a dying chance to win this series. They were
No.
below 500 ever since the KD trade. This was kind of a team that was saved seeding wise from how the team started the season. And, Philly took care of them quick, sweep, no mercy, just sweep out of here, bye. And now there's some interesting trends here. And I think the first you got to start with is Joel Embiid, his injury questions are real right now. We don't know what his status this series is, but you want to give some of your takeaways this series?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the Nets, I didn't give them a chance in this series. I think I had Sixers in 5 just because, I thought the Nets would maybe get like really hot for one game and take
Mm-hmm.
it.
I did too.
But like that Sixers team is they're so much bigger than Nets. They had a 31% offensive rebound rate compared to the Nets had a 14% offensive rebound rate. Like the Nets in the future are going to have to get bigger as a team. I like Nick Claxton a lot, but he's not really my ideal number one rebounding option. I think he's a little undersized, like physically, and I think they just need to, get bigger guys surrounding him more, and they're gonna have to figure out. I mean, I thought Mikal Bridges was still good in the postseason, a
He
little over
was
20, 23 a game, but he obviously, he's not going to be a 27 per game guy in the
no.
playoffs like he was for the Nets in the regular season. I think Bridges can be your number 2, but the question is how you can get that number 1 around him, and that's going to be kind of hard to do when you have like $140 million in the books already next year, and your number 1 player on the payroll, Ben Simmons,
Doesn't
doesn't
play.
play at all. Like, and I don't even have hope that Ben Simmons can do anything for them at this point. I think Ben Simmons is going to be like a certified like 9, 6, and 7 guy for the next 5 years or whatever, with like maybe plus defense, which obviously that's probably more worth like 12 million. I don't know, compared to like 40. But yeah, I mean, Tobias Harris actually looked really nice. A lot of Sixers fans were, like they're kind of signing those apology forms for Tobias Harris. He had a really good series. Tyrese Maxey looked good. I thought the Nets did a really good job limiting Embiid. Harden got to be better. 34% from the field, really inefficient. Hopefully these, playoff shortcomings don't continue for him. For his legacy, he needs a massive series versus Boston. Like, even if
Especially with Embiid's status
yeah,
in the air.
like we need to see some crazy like 25 point, maybe even higher, like 10 plus assist games on good efficiency type series from him. Even if they lose, like he's still got to have a really good series. Or this is one of the bigger series of his career, probably based off what he's being labeled as in the playoffs. And he didn't really change those narratives at all. He made them worse with his last series against Brooklyn. So yeah, we'll see what happens for the Nets. I think the Sixers, I think they're going to lose this series though, pretty handedly by the Celtics.
I think you nailed everything. I think Brooklyn, I think the size deficiencies were a big problem, and also the lack of high-end offensive talent. Like Mikal Bridges is really good, and he was a top 5 most improved candidate for a reason this season. And
Yep.
he was honestly like, this Brooklyn thing was not a fluke. Like it was trending that way ever since Booker got hurt. He was averaging like 23 after Booker got hurt, and then it just kept elevating and elevating. And like you said, he feels like the most perfect number 2 guy because he can score from all 3 levels, and he does it in a way that isn't heliocentric. It's just within the flow. He doesn't have enough of the on-ball wiggle stuff to be a number 1 guy, but he can move off the catch. He can find like close gaps. He can get to the rim. He can hit threes efficiently. He can hit like these really nice moves off of 2 dribbles. He's a star, and Brooklyn found a star, somebody who should be honestly close to untouchable for them, unless like, I don't know, an Anthony Edwards became available for them, which wouldn't happen, right? So why did I contradicted myself? I mentioned the Timberwolves. I'm sorry. But yeah, like I think Brooklyn's next step is figuring out like, can we fix Ben Simmons? I think that has to be the first thing you got to figure out because, like it or not, he's on your basketball team. You got to figure it out.
he's stuck there. I don't know how many years he got, like maybe two
3, I
more full
think.
years, 3, yeah, maybe 3. You're not moving the dude. Nobody's taking that. Like,
No,
who in the world would do that? It's
nobody.
like $40 million a year for 3 more years on a guy who, like, he's solid when he plays, but obviously that's not worth a max contract. That's the first big thing, and the second big thing is, when is he gonna
Oh,
play?
he only has 1 more year in his contract. I was wrong.
Oh, one more,
One more. Well, it's 23, 20. Wait, no, 2 more.
2 more. Yeah, that's what I was
Yep,
thinking.
2 more. He's age 27 season this year, and then age 28 season next year. So they got 2 more years of this. You got to figure it out with him. Like, hopefully you can get him in shape and find that, like, I guess, ignition of excitement for the game once again. That has to be where you look at first. But then also, I don't. Here's a hard thing. You can tell me I'm wrong. I don't think you can have multiple players on the same team with rookie max extensions if one of them got traded for one, right?
Yeah, you can't.
So Ben Simmons right there, you can't trade for a Trae Young.
Mm-hmm.
You can't trade for a young star like that. You can only get one in a second contract like a Dame, but you can't get a first one. So Ben Simmons by himself just limits what you can do. So you have to figure it out and hope that he can figure it out. And then I think if like a Damian Lillard became available, like an amazing number one option type of player, I think Brooklyn has the assets to go in on that. And they have all those switchable wings in the interior center and Nicholas Claxton. Or like I think Brooklyn has designed a roster that has the head, it has the arms, it has the legs. It's missing the heart of the team.
Mm-hmm.
They have everything you want for like a high usage guard to thrive with. It's just they need to find that guard, I think.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see if they can be one of those teams in the mix for a Dame if he somehow became available or someone like that. And Philly, Embiid had a really bad series. And I think and my questions with Embiid are going to be like, can he really like have an MVP season and last in the playoffs? Because he had the 37 usage. He was taking a boatload of shots. He was falling on the ground a lot, always on the free throw line, 33 points per game. Is his body built to do that and go on a playoff run? Because I think I'm just speculating here, but I think he had a bad series in parts because he wasn't feeling good. And then now it's probably gotten escalated. So now he is going to be not very reliable in the series, very possibly. And I don't know. I think Philadelphia is honestly pretty capped on like what does Embiid provide for them? Even as good as Harden and Maxey are, they can't get the job done by themselves. So
Yeah.
I'm worried about that with Philly.
Yeah, one of the best things Philly could have happen this season is obviously Embiid winning MVP, because I wonder in Embiid's mind and the team's mind, like going forward, they're like, okay, you got that MVP. Now you don't have to go in every single
Yeah.
game, and you can rest yourself more during the regular season. You don't have to be, striving for, the 65 plus game mark.
Yeah.
We can load manage you more so you're ready postseason wise. I think that's what they'll probably do going forward, and because he'll win MVP, he's going to win it most likely based off of like early returns we've seen. I think so. Like in the future, I trust him to stay healthy more in the playoffs because of that reason. But right now, I mean, just like in the last few years too, he's always had injuries and nickups in the playoffs, and it's really destroyed, him and that Sixers team.
I think that Zach, that was an amazing point. I was going to go that direction on my next statement, whenever it was the right time to, like, because Embiid gets his MVP this year, I don't think he needs to start award hunting. I think once you get an MVP for a lot of players, it's time to worry about championships.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe instead of having a 37 usage, maybe you're having a 30 usage. Instead of playing 34 minutes, you're playing 30 minutes, right? Like that's what Milwaukee does with Giannis a little bit. Even though Giannis's usage is still crazy, he only plays like 30 minutes. So
yeah, he's surprisingly, like when I watch Bucks games, like his rotations are short.
So like, yeah, I think now Embiid has his award. You have to start managing him a little bit. And I think that's going to be a bigger conversation this offseason. They need him against Boston. They need him so bad. If they don't have Embiid, they got no chance. So that's going to be interesting. That's going to be an interesting conversation that we can elaborate on after this series. But, I thought Philly just overmatched Brooklyn from top to bottom. You said it. Tobias Harris was great. When Tobias, Maxey, and Harden are all delivering in different ways, it's really hard to beat Philadelphia. It's really hard to outscore them. even when Embiid's struggling. So if they can carry that over into this series and they get something from Embiid, they can beat anybody, even a team like Boston that is really darn good. But I don't think Boston's perfect. I think Embiid can give Boston trouble if he plays. Boston has enough switchable wings. I think they're not going to handle Harden, but I think they can give Harden, Maxey, and Harris trouble because those are the type of guys their team is wired to stop. So a team like Embiid they need him this series, and if he isn't playing this series, it's like, okay, time to cut the crap with the MVP stuff. You got it. We got to manage you for the playoffs going forward.
Agreed.
And I think it's a good time to close it out with one more series to talk about. We're at 1 hour and 15 minutes, 75 minutes into this. Cavs versus Knicks. This was another interesting series. I did not think it was going to end as quickly as it did.
I was surprised.
I thought it was going to be a 7-game series. I had the Knicks in 7, but I didn't see this coming. So where do you want to start with this, Zach? Should we talk about the Cavs first?
Yeah, I mean, we got to talk about that rebounding effort. I mean, we got to talk about the Knicks having a 34% offensive rebounding rate, which means literally every one of 3 shots they were getting an offensive rebound on. And we got to talk about Josh Hart out rebounding Jared Allen in the series.
What's with all these like high level centers just not rebounding this postseason? Have you noticed that?
I mean, I don't know. It's
you have guys like Sabonis dealing with the same thing. Like,
yeah, his rebounding numbers dropped down too. But yeah, it was weird. I mean, Mitchell Robinson had 5.8 offensive rebounds per game this series, and the Knicks won even without with Julius Randle putting up stinkers. Like Randle put up 14 a game. I think that ankle was. I don't think he was really that ready to play, and obviously he missed game 1 today with that ankle sprain again. So I mean, the Knicks won even with the Cavs had a more efficient offense, but they lost because they couldn't grab a rebound to save their life this whole series.
Yeah, that was a big part of it. And yeah, the Cavs just had a lot of disturbing trends this series. I mean, I think for starters, the one thing that stood out to me was can Garland and Mitchell work? Because those two are not above 6'1". Neither of them are taller than me. And neither are great rebounders. They're undersized. Neither of them specialize defensively. So when you're playing a team like the Knicks with Brunson, you know a guy like that's going to cook them. You know what's going to happen. And late game, and you're playing against a Knicks team with Brunson's physical, Quickly can be physical, Hart's very physical, RJ can be physical. Those long balls, the Cavs aren't the team that's going to get it. Isaac Okoro, even though he has the reputation as a physical defender, doesn't average three rebounds a game. So From 1 to 3, they just don't have any rebounders. So Jared Allen and Evan Mobley have too much responsibility on their plate for rebounding. Rebounding has to be a 5-man effort. And from 1 to 3, the Cavs just aren't good at rebounding. And it just makes you question letting go of Kevin Love even more. Because they let go of Kevin Love. They just let him go to Miami. And now he's enjoying himself in the second round. Kevin Love is a really good rebounder, right? Why? It's looking more questionable that they let a guy like that go. I understand that doesn't fix the perimeter rebounding problems, but it certainly helps something on the glass. And
yeah,
I think those two got to figure out if you're going to make those two work, you need a Josh Hart type at the 3. You just need or an Andrew Wiggins type, just an athletic defensive wing who can rebound and shoot. They need somebody like that, but between Cedi Osman and Isaac Okoro, they don't have that. So this Cavs team just doesn't have enough physicality from 1 to 3. And I think that sets up Allen and Mobley for bad positions in the playoffs. And even Evan Mobley, he averaged 9.8 points per game in the first round. His offense is still proving while his defense is all world. His offense is still limited. He's got good natural touch. He's got a good feel for the game, but he's got to work on that shooting stroke, man. It's so stiff when he gets to the top, and I think it actually he's got natural touch, but I think it hurts his natural touch with how stiff the ball comes up. And if the Cavs are going to go as far as Evan Mobley takes them, and they need more than 10 points per game in a series from him, they need him to be at minimum their number 2 on offense. So Evan Mobley's offensive development, I think, is the most important thing for this Cavs team this offseason. But they got to figure out, like, I wouldn't like hyperbolize anything. I wouldn't exaggerate anything. I wouldn't trade anybody. I think that's a mistake after year one, but they got to find a way to address that 3 position and how to address the rebounding, especially from the 3, and maybe get like a rebounding guard off the bench. And that's going to be hard to obtain in the trade market because you kind of traded all your picks for Mitchell. So
yeah,
that's another thing. Like Lauri Markkanen would be pretty good right now, but
yeah. Like, I mean, this Cavs roster is just kind of weird and whole. It's like not even just the rebounding. Like, can you name me one player on the roster that is a good defender while being a good 3-point shooter?
ooh, it's a good question. No, I don't think there is one.
Garland.
Karis LeVert should be that, but he isn't.
Yeah, like Garland, offense doesn't do anything on defense. Mitchell not a good, and then whoever they put at
Mobley
3.
and Allen can't shoot.
Yeah,
Or Coro can't shoot. Cedi Osman isn't a great defender nor a great shooter.
Like if Cedi Osman is the closest, I think he's the closest thing to that. And if he's the closest thing you have to a 3-and-D player, you're going nowhere. I don't care who you have in the roster, you're going nowhere if you don't have somebody that can do both defend and shoot threes in today's NBA. They need a 3-and-D player somehow more than anybody else in the league.
Mm-hmm. Is Cleveland the most bipolar roster in the NBA?
I think so. I mean, just everybody, like most of those guys are just, yeah, it's probably
6-foot guards who only shoot, 7-footers
Yeah.
that can't shoot, and in between you got like one-trick ponies on the bench. Like it's a team of a lot of like they're great at this, horrible at this. I feel like this Cavs team is like it's like an Oreo. Like you got the top Oreo, it's like Garland and Mitchell. The bottom Oreo, it's Mobley and Allen. They're missing the glue. They're missing the stuff in the middle to make it great.
Yeah.
You feel me?
The cream. Yep.
Yeah, they're missing the cream. So yeah, they have to find those glue guys, just make it work, you know? So
yeah, they do.
I think that's the next step for Cleveland, finding those glue guys who work. The Knicks have a lot of them. Brooklyn has a lot of them. Brooklyn has the opposite problem. They have too much glue. They got too much glue. They got too much cream. They don't have enough cookies. You feel me? Like
yeah.
they need more. They need more guys like that. I think every team in the NBA this offseason is going to call Brooklyn and see how many of those 3-and-D wings they can land. So
hey, can we have one of your 10 3-and-D wings?
Yeah, you guys have kind of like stolen all of them from the NBA, and you guys don't have a star outside of like Bridges and maybe Claxton soon. Like, that Cavs team. It's going to be interesting this offseason. I love the core 4 they have, but I don't love the pieces around them. And then I look at New York, and I think Jalen Brunson has established himself as the new age Isaiah Thomas.
He's him.
Celtics Isaiah Thomas. Better defender and bigger than Isaiah, by the way. But they found their guy. Like I think Jalen Brunson is doing this year what they thought Mitchell would have done for them. Something like that. So they acquired that on the cheap. Julius Randle, tough series, right? There's legit playoff questions with him. But surrounding them, that team is tough as hell. They're a tough team.
Bunch of Tom Thibodeau players.
Yes. I mean, Quickly had a bad series, but he's tough. RJ Barrett, he's just not good, but he's tough. Josh Hart, he's tough as nails. Ooh. Mitchell Robinson, when he's not shooting 40% on the line, he is tough as nails. Like you look at that bench, and it's a team filled with dogs, man. It's a team filled with dogs.
Imagine they go out and get another star now at some point in the next 2 years,
and they got like 8 firsts they can trade.
Yeah, like I think this core is going to potentially win a championship in the next 5 years.
Do you think you can do that with Tom Thibodeau though?
I think
Quentin Grimes, dog. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I feel like you can. I think you can. I think if like guys like I'll go back to like Budenholzer, and like Frank Vogel, and those guys can win
Mm-hmm.
championships with really good cores around them, I think he probably can too. I think he's a little bit better of a coach than I feel like we've given him credit for at
Yeah. Oh,
points for this Knicks
totally
team.
agree. He's a good coach. Yeah.
But yeah, I think you can. I think I feel like I think the players on that team respect him a lot. I feel like I get that vibe a lot, and
Mm-hmm.
they play a lot harder because of the standard he sets for them,
Yeah.
and I think that's really good. But yeah, I think that this team could win a championship. Obviously, now with the exact team they have right now, I think they need another
Yeah.
piece.
They need a superstar. Like
Yeah.
they have a number 2, and they might have a number 2-ish in Randall, maybe number 3. I don't know yet. Look, I think this next team, if they get the Julius Randle they got out of the regular season, I think that team could go to the East. I think they could beat Miami. I think it's a better team than Miami. I question what you're getting from Randall, which is why I'm taking Miami, but they're a more talented roster than Miami.
Mhm.
And I think the New York Knicks in the Eastern Conference Finals would be just a really cool story. So, yeah, I
Agreed.
think Brunson being this type of guy changes everything. Like, even if RJ was never that guy, that changes everything. And now you have your star, you have another star in Randall, you got all these picks. Now you can go all in on these trades. But in the short term, I'm excited to see how Robinson does against Bam. I'm excited to see Brunson continuing to trend up. I'm excited to see how Randall responds. And, like they need some of these young kids. They need IQ to show up. They need Obi to show up. And yeah, this Knicks team, it's interesting. They're one of my favorite teams in the league right now, truly.
Yeah, they're a fun team to watch for sure, and I'm excited. I mean, this should be a fun series to watch against the Heat. Two of those, similar like grit and grind type
Yep.
teams.
They're cool
So
teams. Big market
I'm
too. Big market
yeah,
teams.
two big market teams. I mean, that would be. I think the NBA is like going to be water at the mouth if the Knicks and the Lakers both get to the respective conference finals. Like how much money the league is going to make, then I think it'd be one of the best performing numbers years and maybe like a long, long time, maybe history. I don't know. But yeah, I'm excited to see what these conference finals look like.
I mean, I think the NBA is saved if it turns into a Knicks conference finals, but then the Celtics and Lakers make the finals.
Yeah. What are your what would your I don't know. I think you had I don't know who would you have as your finals pick before, and then who would your finals pick be now?
I had Bucks and God, I don't know if I made a prediction in the West. I'm not gonna lie, I had the Bucks making the finals, and that's all I felt good about. But
Yeah.
obviously that was wrong. I if I had to guess right now, I think it's going to be Celtics Lakers.
Yeah, I'm still like debating between I think the Lakers and the Nuggets will play each other in the conference finals. I'm kind of debating who I'd want there, but I think whoever wins that wins the finals.
I just don't need the Laker fans in my feed if they make
Oh
the
my gosh.
finals.
Can you imagine D'Lo like average like 20 a game in the finals and they
I
win a
don't need
ring?
it. I don't need it. I don't need it. I don't
Oh
need
my
it.
gosh.
I don't need that.
You'd be getting cooked.
I'll be getting cooked. Although first round I was right about D'Lo, but whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. But I think this is a good spot to end the show. We're about 88 minutes into the show. We broke down every series like as much as two idiots like us can break down a series. Like hopefully we opened up the treasure chest. Like that's all we can really do. But yeah, there was a lot to crack on these series, and it was really fun. And the second round's gonna be incredibly intriguing. And the off season is getting closer. The draft lottery is a couple weeks away.
Yeah, wow, that's actually because I mean we're flipping to May in tomorrow, actually. Yeah, tomorrow
Yeah,
is May 1st. So yeah,
it's about
I
to get
think
good. It's about to get
we'll
good.
we'll probably get, a segment going, like a 10-15 minute segment going, maybe next show or the show after that on, teams that, should, that need to win the lottery the most or something
Yeah,
like that. I don't know.
yeah. We'll
But
talk about that.
we'll talk about that. But yeah, when we come back, hopefully next week, second round will be, coming more to a close. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I think this has been a pretty fun series to watch. I mean, playoffs to watch so far.
Except the officiating as you started the
Yeah.
show out with. But
hmm
yeah, absolutely. And thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. Again, we apologize for not being, I guess, as week to week consistent as we hope. But I think the storm is clearing right now, so it should only get better. And we're just excited. We're excited for the postseason. We're excited for the draft lottery. Like the offseason in the NBA is almost as good as the actual season. So there's always going to be developing storylines, and those are going to be incredibly fun to break down. But thank you guys again so much for listening to this episode. And this is Windshield Hoops, and we'll see you next time.